Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today I'm going to show you how to make this amazing crochet beach tote. The great thing about it, no stretch handles, so it is just using a shopping bag or a tote from your dollar store, and we are covering it in C2C. Super easy to do. We just make the panels the same size as the side that we are covering. So I show you all how to do it step by step. And of course, you don't have to do my loud and proud colors. You could do any color combination you like. To make your super easy C2C covered beach bag, you're going to need a tote. So this is a shopping bag I got from my local dollar store. It is 14 inches across, 13 inches tall, and 8 inches wide. And that is the measurements you want to make for your crochet squares. You'll also need yarn. For mine, I used 5 colors of yarn, but you could use any colors you like, or even just one color per side of your bag. You could do any sort that you liked. I used less than 1 ball of each, about 400 grams for my bag. I also used a 5mm crochet hook, 1 stitch marker, a needle for sewing in my ends, a pair of scissors, and a cheat is just getting some clear nail polish or some quick dry top coat, and then you don't really have to sew in your ends. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot any which way you normally do. Leave a tail long enough to sew in with a needle later. Shrink that down, pop it onto your hook, and we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to skip 2 chains. So skipping 1 and 2, we're going to start in the 3rd chain from our hook, and we're going to make 1 double crochet into the 3rd chain and the next. So a total of 3 double crochets. So skip 2 chains into the 3rd, 1 double crochet, into the next, 1 double crochet, and into the last chain, 1 double crochet. So we've done a total of 3 double crochets, and that is our building block for this pattern. If you're new, go ahead, grab that stitch marker, and we're just going to pop it into that chain space. So right at the bottom of our work, if you pull that chain, we're just going to put that stitch marker right into that chain 2 space at the bottom of our block. Right down there, just marking that chain 2 space. And we're going to do that again. To start C2C, you always need 2 lumps to start. So chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip 2, so skipping 2 chains, starting in the 3rd, 1 double crochet into the 3rd chain from your hook. Just slide that 1 loop on your hook. Make 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet into the next chain. Just remember, you always have to do 3 double crochets, sets of 3. So that's 2, and our last chain is right there. So 1 more double crochet into that last chain. Just like that. So now our first block, we can just flip that up. So the one with the stitch marker, tip it up, and we're going to slip stitch right where that stitch marker is. So right into that chain 2 space, just pop in your hook and slip stitch to join. Chain 2, 1 and 2. You can take that stitch marker out, and we can pop it into this chain space down there on that other block, our second block we made. And now we can go ahead, 3 double crochets all into this space. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. So there is 2. I'm going to be changing colors every 2 rows, so this finishes our second row. So I'm going to start my last double crochet, but I'm going to leave those last 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my next color. So loop of yarn, I'm going to finish that stitch with my new color. So pop a loop of your new color onto your hook, again leaving a long enough tail for you to sew in with a needle later. And just finish off that double crochet with your new color. And hold both of those tails along the back of your work. We can shrink them up later, so don't worry if you get big loops here, don't worry about it at all. Just pinch it and shrink that loop that's on your hook and chain 5 because we're starting a new block with our new color. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to build a new block. And don't worry if this pattern is confusing to you, it's not making sense. Just follow along, and around row 6, you'll get it. But for now, just follow along and it'll all make sense. So skipping 2 chains, 1 and 2, working into the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each. So 3rd chain from your hook, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into each of those next 2 chains. So a total of 3. Just like that. If you're new, you can just grab another stitch marker and pop it in to that chain 2 space of your new block, just so you can see it when you get to the ends of your row. And we're going to do the same thing again. So we just finished this block. Now, instead of turning one block up, we're going to turn up our work. So just flip it up. Does that make sense? So it's hanging down. Our blocks are hanging down. We take our work and we flip it up away from you. And now bring these together. And we're going to find that chain 2 space at the top of our block, the top of our staircase. Pop in your hook and slip stitch to start. Chain 2 to get your height. 1 and 2. And 3 double crochets into that same space. There's 1, 2. And you can see I flipped that work down. I'm holding that staircase down. So when I'm working, I'm not snagging into it. Just pinch it down so it's out of your way. And make sure you've done your 3 double crochets. Now you can pop your staircase back up. And we're going to slip stitch into that chain 2 space right at the top of our staircase. So slip stitch into the space to join. You can pop that stitch marker out. And now we're going to finish that staircase. So as we're growing, we need to put a stair on top of every block until we get to this edge over here. Sometimes it's easy to think that we're at the edge and then you get confused of what to do. So just remember, every step needs a new step while we are increasing. So chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 double crochets into that space. 1, 2, and 3. So that is now the edge of our row. So you can see our staircase. Each stair gets a new stair going up. So make sure this last block along the edge gets a stair on top of it. And now we're ready to start another row, and we always start a new row, an increase row, with another block. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can hit that gear on the video and slow me down or speed me up. Skip the first 2 chains and working into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 1 double crochet into each. So skip 2 chains and into the 3rd, you start your first double crochet and into the next chain, your 2nd double crochet, and into the last chain, your 3rd double crochet. So always in sets of 3. So our work is getting bigger, the one we have to flip up, but you can go ahead and pop a stitch marker into that chain 2 space of our new block, like that. And now we're ready to flip up our work, our finished work. So we're going to hold this one down and turn our big work up. And then we're just going to rotate it together, and you're going to see where we're joining. We're joining right there. So pop your hook into that chain 2 space and slip stitch to join, and chain 2 to get the height of your first block or your next block, and 3 double crochets into the space. Slip stitch to join it to our staircase. So we're always slip stitching into that chain 2 space. Chain 2 to get your height. And I also like to just flip down that last stair so it doesn't get in my way. So chain 2 for your block and 3 double crochets into that chain space. 1, 2, and 3. Now I can let that stair come up, and we're going to connect right into that chain space like usual. So slip stitch to join, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 double crochets into the space. But this is my second row of this color, so I'm not going to finish that last double crochet. I'm going to leave those last 2 loops on my hook. So these 2 loops are going to stay on my hook, and I'm going to change color. You'll also notice that all of our tails are going to be on the same side. So that's another good indication when you're ready to change colors. One side's going to have no ends, and one side is going to have some ends to sew in later. So grab your next color of yarn and finish that double crochet with your next color. Like that. Drop your tails, just pinching them along the back of your work. So you'll have 2 tails to pinch. Those 2 tails, just holding them along the back of your work, and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skipping 2 chains and into the third, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 chains. Just like that. You can pop that stitch marker out. So now we're going to do the same thing. You can hold down that block you just made, your new block, and turn your work up, and then rotate your work to join it up. And you'll see right where your hook is where you're going to pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. So 1 little slip stitch. And now we're just going to build a stair on top. We're going to build our staircase all the way back up. So starting with a chain 2, 3 double crochets into the space, connecting it to the staircase, so slip stitching into the next stair, that space at the top, and we're doing that again. So chaining 2, 3 double crochets into the space, into that chain 2 space, slip stitching into the top of the next stair to pin it down. And we're going to do that all the way up. So this last stair, I just flip it down so it stays out of your way. I have a big knot in my yarn, so I got to fix that. I'm just going to do a magic knot to connect it. It's acrylic yarn, so magic knots work really great. So putting my new yarn over my old yarn, just looping it around and making a little knot, just a regular knot. And taking my old tail and doing the same thing around my new yarn. So just looping it around and making a knot. Like that. So now I have my old tail, my new tail, shrink them together, give everything a really good tug. There we are. And now we can cut those tails off right at that knot. Right there. And there is our magic knot. So chain 2, 1 and 2, holding that top stair down along the back of my work, and 3 double crochets into the staircase. There's 1, 2, and 3. Flipping that last stair up, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the staircase. And we have to build our block. So our yarn is not coming from the edge, it's still coming from one block in. We have to finish that block. So chaining 2 and 3 double crochets into that space. And you can pop that stitch marker out whenever it gets in your way. Getting pretty great. So popping the stitch marker out. Now you can put that stitch marker into that chain space that we just made. And we're ready to start another block. So chaining 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skipping 2 and into the third, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 chains. So always sets of 3, just like that. And now we have our nice flat edge. We're ready to flip up our work. So holding that new block down, flip up your work, and we're going to connect right there. So just rotate your hook to join up that stair, and it's going to slip stitch right where that stitch marker is, or just top of our very first stair, that chain 2 space. So slip stitch to join, chain 2 to start. You're welcome to pop that stitch marker out, and you can put it in to the chain 2 space of that block. And now we're going to work all the way up our staircase again. So each stair, we get a new block. So our blocks are a chain 2, 3 double crochets, and a slip stitch into the chain space of the next stair, right there. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing your slip stitch, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then the same thing all the way up. I'll meet you when you get to the top of your staircase right here. At the top of your staircase, we're going to join it, so right into the chain space at the top of that block, slip stitch, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into that space. There's 2, and here is 3. 3, I'm not going to finish my stitch. I'm going to change my yarn color. So I'm just going to finish that stitch with my new color of yarn. And now you can just keep growing your pattern this way, and I'll show you how you're going to know when it is the right size for your bag. So now my side piece is ready to start turning into a rectangle. I'm going to be growing on the side here where I'm joining my new stripes, and I'm going to be not growing anymore right here at the end of this white block right here. I'm going to pop a stitch marker into the end of this block just to mark that I'm not building into it. I'm not growing on this side of our work. We're only growing where we're joining our yarn. So we're just going to continue the first row exactly how we've been doing it. So just grabbing my next color of yarn, finishing that stitch, and then starting my block and working down my staircase. So you can pause the video and I'll just get this next row done. I'll meet you down here when we get to our stitch marker right there. So I've worked all the way along the staircase and I'm ready to join that step to the staircase. So I'm going to slip stitch like we normally do, but we're not going to build a stair on top of this stair. We're finished. We're not growing anymore at all. So just remember that our stitch marker means no more new blocks on this side. We're going to slip stitch all the way along into these 3 stitches and also into the space. So we're going to do 4 slip stitches. So into the first stitch, slip stitch, and you want to kind of pull these up a little bit. You don't want to have really tight slip stitches. So pull them up so they're a bit loose and slip stitch into each of the stitches, just making them a little loose as you go. So there's my 3 slip stitches, and also slip stitch into the space. Like that. So we've just worked along and got our flat edge started here. You can move this stitch marker up if you want to remind yourself to not grow on this edge. And now just kind of rotate your work so we see our staircase again. And now we're going to just work up our staircase same as usual, all the way up to the top. So we start the same. We're already in that chain space. That was our last slip stitch. So now it's same as usual, chain 2 and 3 double crochets into that space. Just like regular. And slip stitch to the next stair. So keep going until the long side of your gonna be rectangle almost meets the top of your bag, like that. And you want all of your long sides of your bag, the horizontal ones, so your front panels to end at the same block, your side panels to end at the same block, so they all will be matching with this last block. And then we are ready to turn it into the proper rectangle. So we're going to be finishing off into a square right up here. To finish off into a square, we're just going to do our decreasing on both sides now. So no new blocks at all, no more of that chain 5. So we're just going to slip stitch or make our last slip stitch into the space with our new color of yarn. And we're going to start our new block. So just holding those tails at the back of your work. And starting a new block like regular. So chaining 2 and 3 double crochets into that space. I'm not working over my tails, I'm just letting them sit there. We're going to finish them off together. I'll show you a couple tips and tricks for finishing off those tails in a minute. And now just work up this edge of your staircase all the way up. I'll meet you up here at the top of our row. This is already the side with our stitch marker where we have not been adding blocks. We've always stopped. We are going to stop again. So slip stitch into the space to join. Turn your work. You can chain 1 or not. It depends on you. And into that first stitch, slip stitch. Pull up a little bit of a bigger loop for the next slip stitch. And pull up a little bit of a bigger loop for the next slip stitch. And now regular slip stitch into that space. So that evens out those 2 slip stitches in the middle so that they're a little bit bigger like our natural stitches. Now we're just ready to build our blocks going all the way up. So chain 2 and 3 double crochets into each of the spaces and connecting to the staircase with a slip stitch. So you can pause the video and keep working along all the way up, and I'll meet you again right up here at the top of the staircase. At the top of your staircase, we're going to do the same thing. So slip stitch to join. Turn your work. And we're going to make 3 slip stitches and then our color change. So into this first stitch, 1 slip stitch, regular small slip stitch. Now pull your hook up a little bit so it is a larger stitch or larger loop, and slip stitch into the next. Pull your hook up a little bit so it's a larger loop, slip stitch into the next. And now we're going to cut our yarn. and get our new color, which is orange. Pop your hook into that chain space and put the loop of yarn on your hook. You can just hold all those tails together for a minute and bring it through that loop. Drop all your tails, just pinching them along the back of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. And now you can keep going with your new color back and forth, and we are just not building any blocks. We're always going to be slip stitching, turning, and slip stitching back, and either continuing or joining a new color. So you can pause the video, keep working along until you have completed this square bit here and have a complete rectangle. And if you want to master more C2C techniques, check out my C2C Masterclass. It has all of my tips or tricks for mastering all sorts of C2C techniques, including color changes, middle of the row, and the rest of it. After your last block, we're just going to join the same way, so slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So there is our finished rectangle. This is the side of your bag. So 2 side panels, 1 bottom panel, and 2 front and back panels, and everything matches. Now we are ready to sew in our tails. So I'll show you some quick tips for managing all of these tails. So the very first tail at the end, we'll have to sew that in. But these ones that match where we changed color, these ones we can do a knot. So we know that they're secure. And you can pull it really tight, especially if you're using acrylic yarn. If you're using a cotton yarn or something like that, just be careful you don't snap your threads or your fibers. So work all the way along, just knotting each of these pairs. Now that all of your tails are securely knotted, you can get some clear nail polish. Of course, you're welcome to sew in your tails if you prefer. And then just in between where that knot is, just a little dab of clear polish. Just where that knot is, in between those tails, all the way along. And then let those dry. When those are dry, just pull those tails and you can snip them off right at the knot. Just like that. And if you want to go back and pop another drop of nail polish on those ends, you can do that as well. And then repeat that for all of your tails. You also have to sew in your first and last tail because there's nothing to knot that one to. So repeat that for all of your tails, and then we're ready to assemble. When you have all of your tails either knotted and cut or sewn in, we are ready to assemble our bag. And just arrange your pieces around your center bottom. And then our 2 sides are here, and our front and back pieces are here. And then get some coat thread or whatever thread you have, like just sewing thread that is strong. If you don't have sewing thread, you could use white dental floss. And you need 6 lengths of the seam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Thread your needle. I'm just using a yarn needle. And then our 2 ends, we're just going to make a knot with both of those. So we're going to sew our bag together with a double strand of thread. You could do a double knot, just 2 knots in the same spot. So insert your needle into the first square, into that corner stitch, and into the second corner stitch where we're going to be joining. Bring your needle through, your thread through, but don't let that knot slip all the way. We want to get our needle in between those strands to make a knot, just to secure our thread as we start. And you want to shrink that down and make sure it is nice and secure. Now we are ready to just join. We're just going to go back and forth, just little stitches all the way up from one side and then back the other direction. So pause the video and keep sewing along just like we're doing. You can see you can't see your stitches. It's nice and tidy, nice and clean. And keep going all the way along, and I'll meet you when you have joined up this side. When your thread gets short, we're going to just finish it off. So pulling it through. And now I'm going to go through this loop once, twice, 3 times. And pull it through, just holding that knot or those loops down along my work. That'll make a little knot down there. And we want to do that again. Bringing your needle through and then looping it through 1, 2, 3 times. Could have left a longer tail. And pulling it through and just holding that along your work and pulling it tight. So there is 2 knots down there. Now we can just put a regular knot on top of that. Just on top of that knot. Just like that. And now I'm going to just put my needle back through some stitches and out on the other side, and now we can cut that off. And start with a new yarn or a new thread right there. Now that we have connected our pieces together around our bottom piece here, now go ahead and sew up all of those sides to form your bag. When you've joined up all of your shapes, I'm just going to inside it out. If you sewed in your tails, you can leave it this way around so it has a little bit of a seam on the edge. If you didn't sew in your tails, inside it out and grab your bag, and we're just going to put the bag inside. And now you want to line up your corners. So your corner is going to get that seam just like that. And you want the crochet to be a little bit taller than the bag, just by like the top of a stitch. Line up your crochet so the crochet is above the bag by a little bit, and pop your needle through. Go 1 stitch over and poke your needle back, because we want to knot that yarn before we get going. So just poke it through those 2 strands to give us a good start. And then just keep working along, just making tiny stitches just over 1 strand of your crochet and back down into your bag. As you're working around, you can take bigger stitches from the inside, but small ones on the outside. So you can't see the thread on the outside, but on the inside, you can kind of jump over a few stitches and then just take a tiny bit of yarn. Jump over a few stitches and take a tiny little bit of yarn all the way along. You can also try to stay in a straight line, but you can try. I did not do it all the way around, but that's great. And now, depending on your bag or your tote, you might have these open corners. I'm going to show you how to fix those next. So just grab some matching yarn, whatever color matches that corner, and insert your yarn, or start just from down along that seam, coming out the top, just like that. And now along that top corner, pinch your bag shut, and we're just going to grab yarn from one side to the other, just like darning a sock. If you have ever darned a sock, which I've not, but my grandma used to. And you just pretty much keep going in back and forth to fill up the space, with your yarn. Just along the top, back and forth. And wherever the bag is still sticking out, you just put another strand of yarn over top until it's yarn at the top of your corner instead of the bag. There, I can't really see any of the bag anymore. It's all yarn. So now you can go ahead and sew in this yarn, so in the tail. Just poke it down through the same color. And now we can just cut off both of those tails. And now you can't see the corner of your bag anymore. See the difference before we do it and after we do it? So pause the video and get all of your corners covered and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.